Pickle Peeps, thank you for joining me for another video. I am your host, Voodoo Pickles, and today we're going to be talking about the dark matter. So this was a book that was published last year. What year is this? Yeah, last year. And it's written by Daniel M. Durick. And I got this as an ARC to read and review, and I did post that review in a TLDR and as well as Amazon. So I got this for free, and it's still free on Kindle Unlimited if you want to read it for free. And this is a horror sci-fi novel, and it is also the first book in the Bridgewater series. I don't know how many books are going to be in that, but that's this book. So the beginning of this book starts out with Catherine. Catherine is a scientist, and she has a focus in dark matter and cosmology, which I had to look up what cosmology is. It's a branch of metaphysics that deal with the nature of the universe. So that's what she specializes in. She's been working in this field for over 57 years. This is her jam. So at the beginning of the book, she is on her computer. She's in her office at a university. One of her biggest breakthroughs was she was able to photograph dark matter, which is big deal. And she has a photograph of the dark matter in her office, but something's wrong. So she's upset. Something is off. And she takes the picture. It was a blown up picture. She takes the picture and she takes it off of the wall and she puts it behind her couch and behind her bookshelf in her office at the university. And then she opens up the window and jumps. That is the first chapter of the book. So that's what we're introduced into. She's at the University of Bridgewater, and from there we go and we meet Officer Jacob Reed. Jacob Reed is he's a uniformed police officer with the Bridgewater PD, and he's just like a patrol officer, a beat cop. Like, he's just the uniformed officer in the police cruiser and everything. And he has been working doubles as much as he can to get as much overtime as he can to buy a house. And he's just like, all right, I'm going to buy a house. I'm working towards this. And he also has a girlfriend named Wendy. And he met Wendy at a gym. They both love working out. Wendy has a whole thing about strength, and she moved in with him. So he's calling Wendy to tell her, like, hey, good night, babe. And one thing is, everybody calls everybody babe. And as a couple in this book, babe is said so much. But yeah, he calls her to say goodnight, everything. He has a dog. He's like, did you take the dog out for me? And she's like, no, it's snowing. And he's like, fine, I'll do that when I get home. And he's just working, and it's snowing a lot. And he's like, all right, I'm here. I'm working overnight. And he's trying to study to take his detective's exam to work towards being a detective. That's what he wants to do. His whole goal is to buy a house and to be a detective with this police department. So he's studying to take his detective's exam, and he gets bored with that. So he's just kind of staring out into the snow, and he sees something odd in the snow. And he gets up, he goes out, he's stretching his legs a little bit, and in one area of the road, because he's parked behind, like a speed trap type of thing, is parked off to the side, and he ends up walking in the middle of the road. And in this part in the middle of the road, there's no snow falling. And he's just like, that's really weird. And he's just standing there looking up and looking around, and he's just like, this is odd. This is really odd. And while he's standing there, he sees headlights coming down the road. And he tries to, like, kind of jump out of the way. Not really, but kind of. And there's this car that's coming, hits a patch of ice, and goes into the ditch and hits a tree trunk. And when that happens, he's like, oh shit. And he runs over there, and he's just like, are you okay? Is everything fine? Ma'am, are you okay? And the rest of the chapter goes into him talking, trying to get this person out of this vehicle. We don't know her name, but he is really excited that he can smell alcohol coming off of her once he kind of opens up the window. He's able to open up the window a little bit, but not really. He can't open up the door, so he breaks the back windshield of the trunk. And when he breaks the back windshield of the trunk area, he's going to go in there and grab her and pull her out because he's starting to smell smoke. He's worried that there's a fire starting. He's like, it's going to explode. And so he's like, I'm going to pull her out this way. See if I wrote it down. I wrote down that he's upset that this vehicle almost hit him while he was standing in the middle of the road, and he was hoping that they were doing something wrong so he wouldn't get in trouble. Okay, so I did. The door is not working. He can't open it. So he does break the back window, and then he goes to the front of the vehicle and then goes through the window to press the button or pull the lever so the seat can fall back because the woman is in shock. And he breaks the back window, goes to the front of the vehicle, rolls down the window or breaks it. It doesn't say. But the window is open a little bit. So he puts his arm in there and pulls the lever for the seat to fall back, and then goes to the back of the vehicle and then climbs in there and then pulls this woman out. And he gets her to his cruiser. And by the time he gets her to his cruiser, he's really relieved because he can smell alcohol on her breath, and the car explodes. And then he calls dispatch, lets them know that he's going to need an ambulance and he's going to need fire rescue. And he takes off his jacket, wraps it around this woman, and puts her in the car. And she's just dazed and in shock. This part of the book was weird. It's like the second chapter, but it was odd. It was written weirdly. Like the whole time I'm sitting here thinking about how this would work. I can suspend my belief a lot when reading a book. But if you tell me specifically this is step 1, step 2, step 3 in a book, I'm going to take my time and be like, all right, well, step 1, he went up there, couldn't open the door. Step 2, he went to the back, broke the windshield, but then couldn't reach her and she wasn't responding. So he went all the way back to the door. Step 3, or I guess that was step 3. Step 4, the window's somehow open and he reaches in there and he pulls the lever so her seat falls back. I want to know, how is this pinned? Why couldn't he just open the door from that? Was it jammed? Was it broken into? From the way that the book sounds, it was the car swerved, hit the patch of ice, swerved to miss him, and then went off into the ditch and then hit a tree trunk head on. That's how it's described. Or at least described enough that that's what it leads me to believe. He's free enough to go and talk to her at the front door, but he can't open up the door or anything. It doesn't say it's jammed, just says it's not really working. But he's able to roll down the window, or it's somehow open. Reach all the way in there to the side and pull up the thing. If it was down enough, like how long are his arms? How long are his arms that he can just reach down? Have you guys done that? I was curious about this because it took me out of the reading experience enough that I was like, you know what? I'm curious. How far does my front driver's seat window have to be down for me to reach the little lever for the seat to fall backwards? I can't do it unless the window is fully down. And if the window is fully down, he could have pulled her out of the thing. But again, I'm not a giant person. I am the average height for a woman born in my year. I don't have ridiculously long arms. Maybe he does. I don't know. I'm just saying that if you're going to make it super detailed like this, it needs to make sense and you have to give me some information here. But it was in the second chapter. It pulled me out of the experience and I was like, hold up. I spent a ridiculous amount of time figuring this out. I was at work. I was like, you know what? I have 5 minutes. I'm about to eat my lunch. Let me just do this real quick. Pull down like this much, couldn't even reach my arm down to it, and then this much, and it's an SUV. It's not described as a tiny little car. Just saying. Weird. It was oddly specific, but very vague. And that's how we were introduced to Jacob Reed. his interaction with this woman who is not introduced, that he caused to have an accident, but is excited that she smelled like alcohol so he wouldn't be blamed for it. Because she was driving fast. I'm not saying that she would not have gotten into an accident if he had not been standing in the middle of in the road. I'm just saying we don't know. I don't know. Yeah, from there we go to Detective John Prosser in the next chapter. He is a detective with the Bridgewater PD, and he is being sent to go to the Bridgewater University to investigate Dr. Catherine O'Reilly's death. So he gets there, and there's only one officer there with the sheet over the body at this busy university. And he is talking about how busy this university is compared to the community college he went to, a different part of the city. And he goes up to this officer, asks what happened, and they tell him like a brief thing of what had happened. And he lifts up the sheet, looks at her, and he's like, "Is anybody else here?" And he tells him, yeah, there's an officer upstairs upstairs at her office, securing the scene. And he's like, all right. So he tells him, we need to further secure this. We're going to have to set up some things. Let me know when the coroner gets here. And he's like, got it, boss. And he goes up to the office where she was at, and he tells the officer there that he needs to go to the security because he noticed there's cameras up there. He needs to go to security and get some video of the whole day, or at least, for a couple hours before, see if anybody came in or out, and he just needs to go talk to security, get that footage. The officer goes over and goes to talk to security. He goes into the office, trying to do detective things there. He notices that there is a difference on the wall where the picture was taken down. He's like, what is this? What was that? And he goes, he finds the picture where Catherine had put it behind her bookcase area, and he pulls it out, and he's like, that's odd. And while he's walking around trying to figure out what happened, the dean of the university just walks into the office, and she introduces herself to the detective and says that, everybody's really sad. Everybody's really upset. There's like a 4-minute gap between when she jumped to when the dean was notified that there was a body, and like 911 was called. And so there was a 4-minute gap, and he's trying to figure out what went on in that 4-minute gap. He is automatically suspicious of, was she pushed? Who pushed her? How would they have pushed her? And while he's looking at it, he's not sure that she jumped. And the dean tells him that she has been working on a satellite that was going to be launched into space that morning. And when that satellite was launched into space, it exploded. And that it could be a reason that Catherine would have jumped if there was no way that she could redo the satellite, or if it was going to take too long, or it was going to be too expensive, that was her last chance to do whatever she was doing in her field of work. And that could have been a reason why she would have jumped. The detective's like, that's odd. That's weird, but I don't know. And so he tells the dean that he gives her his information. He's like, if I have any questions, I'll let you know. I'm sorry for your loss. And is there anybody that she was friends? So he asks her like friends with or anything. And the person across the hall was like the closest colleague to her, I guess. And so he talks with her, and she's just like, oh yeah, her satellite blew up. So that could be a real thing of like, I understand why she jumped. It's really sad. And he's like, okay, maybe it is as it seems. I don't know. And he walks into the office, and he looks out of the window that's open, and He looks down, he sees the sheet, the coroner's there, and they're starting to set off like cordoning off the area. And then he sees three men. Three men with very specific haircuts, with sunglasses and generic non-brand looking shirts and khaki shorts. All standing right there, looking at the body, looking up, and he immediately is like, those are spooks. So he has some history with government interference, like federal interference into an investigation that he has been working on. He flashes back to a case that he was working on that spooks also showed up and they stole his investigation and nothing came out of it. And so he was like, not today, Zerk, not today. So he takes Catherine's laptop, finds her vehicle keys, goes to the garage and finds her vehicle, opens it up, looks inside to see if there's anything in it. She's a fairly clean person, so there's nothing in it. Except he grabs her garage door opener for her personal home, takes that, and puts all of this stuff in his vehicle, and then leaves. Because he doesn't want them to take his investigation. He wants to figure out what happened to Catherine before anything else happens to it. And then we switch back to Officer Reed. And Officer Reed is going on a call. There's a call for breaking and entering at a local hardware store. He gets there and there's another officer there. They're talking about like what's going on here. And there was a man that was seen breaking a window and climbing through it. And so they're debating on whether they're going to wait for the owner of the hardware store to show up with the key so they can go inside. And Reed is like, we don't have enough time for that. This guy could be gone by then. So he decides to jump through the window and go into the hardware store. And he goes into the hardware store and he sees a man who is naked, partially frostbitten, looks very disheveled, and he is huddled in a corner in one of the aisles. And Officer Reed is just like, oh, are you okay? He's trying to talk to him, trying to engage with him. This man is not talking to him. He's kind of mumbly. He seems very incoherent. So Officer Reed puts his jacket on him and opens up the hardware door. And the other officer comes in. They're like, we're going to need an ambulance. And they take the man in the ambulance and he leaves. And they're like, all right. Okay. So Reed goes off to his favorite coffee place. There's a local gas station that he gets his coffee at, especially when he's working doubles, and they get free coffee for first responders. So he goes there, he gets coffee, he meets this kid that's working there. I forget what his name is. Did I write that down? Patch. Patch is his name. Patch is working behind the counter. A younger kid. Reed asks him what he's still doing in this town. He's like, shouldn't you be in college or something? And Patch is like, I'm not going to get student loan debt. I'm here. I'm working on something. And Officer Reed is trying to be like this mentor type person to Patch. And Patch tells him that he is learning coding. He is learning Python. And Reed doesn't know what that is, but he's like, all right, cool. Patch tells him that he's working on, I believe, a video game. And so Reed is very excited that he's working on himself or doing something that he's not just going to end up working at the gas station for his whole life, and tells him the next time I'm here, I want to hear about this video game and how much progress you've made on it since the last time I saw you. And he leaves. I'm like, okay, that's it. Okay. Interesting interaction. And while he's working on some of these calls, he gets called to a farm, a local farm that he used to live across the street from. This local farm has a farmer. His local farmer's name is Joseph. Joseph is the father of Reed's old school friend named Sadie. When Reed was a kid, his family lived across the street from this farm, and him and Sadie hung out all the time, and he was always over at the farm running around and everything. And this was before his father, who was also a police officer, died under mysterious circumstances, but not really. It's alluded to in the book, but never explained, that his father had a really bad anger issue, and that something may have happened in a firefight. I don't know. It never really talks about it, but it does say that he had a really bad anger issue. And when he passed away, his mom, I guess, had to move, but they're not living across the street anymore. He does live in his mother's old house, but it's not right across the street from the farm anymore. This is also never explained. His mother is living in Florida at a different house. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to work a lot of doubles so he can buy a house for his mom and then sell her house to get another house. Or he's trying to buy himself a house so he can sell her house so he can buy her another house in Florida. It's some kind of house realty shuffle is why he's trying to do all of this stuff with. But he used to live across the street from this farm. He used to play with this little girl named Sadie. There's this huge tree at the top of the hill that they used to run around and play at. But he gets called to this farm, and Joseph, the owner of the farm and Sadie's father, said that there was something in his barn and it was bothering his cows, and that's why he called the police. And he shows up, and Joseph's there, and he's trying to explain to him what happened. But Joseph's really gruff and kind of aggressive to Reed. Reed goes into this barn and tries to see what's going on, see if there's anything in there. He sees all the animals in there. Nothing seems to be wrong until he gets closer to the end of the barn, where he sees something very fast moving, very shadowy like, across the barn, and it runs out of the barn. He runs and he chases it, and then he runs into Joseph when he's like, "Where'd it go?" And Joseph's like, "Where'd what go?" Reed's like, "Something came out. Didn't you see it?" Joseph's like, "I didn't see a damn thing." And I'm like, "All right, well, I could have sworn I saw something." And Joseph's like, "I didn't see anything come out of that barn except you." And while they're talking with this, he's like, "All right, this is awkward." Joseph asks him what happened the last time Reed was at his house. He asks him, "When you were here last, you ran out. Remember that?" It's like, "You ran out of this kitchen and you left and you never came back." And Reed's like, I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know what you're talking about." And Joseph tells him, "You think about that. You tell me the next time you see me why you ran out of my house that day. And you never came back to my home." And Reed's like, "Okay." And he leaves. Oh, he asks him to come back when he figures out what happened that day. And Reed is like, "Okay." And he leaves. And then he gets another call to go to a domestic disturbance where it's at a trailer park. And while he's at this trailer park, there is a couple that he gets called out to talk to a lot. They get really aggressive. They start fighting. They get loud. The neighbors call the police. The police come out and they kind of corral them back into their trailer. And it doesn't really de-escalate the situation. He's just kind of like, "Can you guys just go in your home?" Whoa. And he ends up corralling them back in there. And then while he's at this call on their banister balcony area, he sees a praying mantis. And he looks at the praying mantis. The praying mantis looks at him. It seems that the praying mantis is intelligent or odd in some way. And he's like, that's weird. And the praying mantis is bright green. And he's like, "That's odd." He gets back in his cruiser and he leaves. And then we switch to the detective. The detective took the garage door opener. It's nighttime now, so he is at Catherine O'Reilly's home. He opens up the garage. He parks his vehicle into the garage, closes the garage door, and he's like, oh, good. It doesn't look like the spooks got here yet. So he goes into her home and he walks around looking at all of her stuff. And he sees a picture on the mantle of Catherine with another person, and it's a man. And he's like, boyfriend. I need to talk to him. So he takes the picture out of the picture frame and puts it in his pocket. And he takes a look at her library, her personal library, and he sees that there's books on all types of different chapters of things. There's all types of different things. There's all wide variety. There's electronics, there's sciencey things, there's all kinds of stuff. He doesn't really understand what it is, but he does recognize that it goes across a wide field of sciences. and he's like, that's weird. And he's touching all this stuff. And he sees in her office that there's a bunch of electronics on a desk. And when he sees that, he's like, oh, what is this? He tries to open it. He picks things up. He doesn't really know what's going on. This man has never really heard of taking pictures before you touch things. And I'm like, okay. He doesn't do that until he gets to her office, and he's already like, I've decided I'm going to take her stuff. He does take some pictures of her books that she has, and then he takes this black box that she's been working on, it appears, on her desk. He doesn't know what it is, doesn't know what it does, but he picks it up, he puts it in his bag under his coat or something. He takes it with him, and he leaves her house. And he's trying to think of where he's going to put all of this evidence. He doesn't want to have it at his house because he says that the spooks may be able to look in his house or break into his house and steal it. So he decides he's going to take it to the police station and keep it locked in his desk. His reasoning is that if spooks do come and try and take the evidence from him, that he can tie them up with bureaucratic red tape enough that will push distance away from him having to give them the evidence. And so he's made that decision, and he's like, all right, that's the plan. And then we switch back to Reed. Reed goes home after working a double. He's super tired. By the time he gets there, Wendy is awake. She's getting ready for her job. She works at a medical place for social media. When we're introduced to Wendy, she is very annoyed with her boss. Apparently, she's got some banger ideas that her boss just refuses to listen to with her social media thing. I don't know, but that's what he keeps asking her about. Did she use any of your ideas yet? And she's like, oh, no, she didn't. Or, yeah, she's thinking of using this one idea. And we are told more about Wendy's obsession with strength. That they met at a gym months ago, and that she works out a lot so she doesn't have to feel weak, and that she is attracted to Reed's strength. A way that the author and that she's obsessed with strength. They met at a gym. He highlights her calves as a way of showing her dedication to the gym and strength training, which I guess she's got some killer calves. And while she's getting ready, they're just talking about, like, how you doing, how you been, how, like, just normal type of stuff of getting home. And she's getting ready for work, so they're just kind of talking. And while they're talking, she shows him her new earrings. She has these black triangle type earrings, and when he sees them, he gets really, really upset and starts to have a panic attack. And when he has a panic attack, he goes into a different room. She's going up near him, being like, "Hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Is everything fine?" He's like, I need a minute." And she's like, "No, what's going on? You will tell me right now." And he's like, "No, I need a minute. I'm not feeling great." And then she asks him if she could come into the room, and he's like, "All right, but I need you to take those earrings off first." And she's like, "For realsies?" And he's like, "Totes." And she's like, "Okay." She takes them off, and she goes into the room, and she's like, "What's going on?" And he's just saying he doesn't know what happened, that something just happened, and that it's having to do with her earrings. And she's like, so do you want me to take them back? Do you want me to return them? And he's like, oh, I don't know. He's like, something's just weird happened. And he doesn't give her an answer. And I like this. And it's one of the lines in the books. It's, she looks at him weird. It was how she looked at skinny guys at the gym. I don't know what that means. I'm assuming that's not a good look, but I don't know what that means. It's weird, apparently, the way she looks at skinny guys at the gym. And then from there, we go back to Detective Prosser. Prosser gets to the station and the captain he gets there, he puts the evidence in his desk, he locks the desk, and the captain calls him into her office. And he's like, all right, here we go. And he goes into her office and she's asking him about the Catherine case. He's like, how's it going? What's going on with it? I need an update. And he is like, oh, you have people calling you? You have people wanting to know what happened with this? And she's like, duh. Catherine O'Reilly was a bigwig in sciencey things. So I have a lot of people calling me. One of those people is the mayor saying, I need to know what happened on this case. And she's like, so I need you to finish this up. I need you to tell me what's going on. And he tells her that it does appear like it was a self-unaliving, but he can't be sure until he talks to some more coworkers, talks to the boyfriend, talks to the family, and then he could go through and close the case. And all of that stuff. And she's like, all right. And then he's trying to subtly ask her if like there's other people asking a lot of questions, particularly spooks. But she just tells him that she's like, I get this same amount of calls for any high profile case. She's like, so I just need you to do your job and keep me in the loop. Then we switch back to Reed. Reed is also at the station. And when he goes into the station, he sees that on the wall, there's, previous police officers of the station, and there's his father there with the plaque mysteriously missing. We don't know what happened to it. We just know that it's missing. And he says hi to his dad, the picture of his dad, every day as he walks in. And he goes into the station and I guess starts work. While he's going into the station and right before he starts like his shift or whatever, he's thinking about all the ways that he can try and differentiate himself from his father for not being a aggressive meathead, I guess. And then it switches back to Prosser. So Prosser goes home and he has a wife who works in project management. Her name is Sarah? Yeah, her name is Sarah. So he has a wife named Sarah and they have a son named Charlie. Sarah is the most understanding wife in the world. She realizes the man she married is a workaholic detective who has to solve every case and find out all the answers to everything. So when they got married, she just kind of lets him go off and do his thing. They did have a son, like I said, Charlie, when they were later in life. They're in their late 40s, I think now. And Charlie is 5. So she told John that he, in like 5 years or 5 to 10 years, and when Charlie's a teenager, he's going to retire. When he retires, he will be 100% present in their life. And so until he retires, she's just like, he goes off and does whatever he does for as long as he does, as sporadically as he does. Pretty much is he can do whatever, he's going to do whatever he wants to do until he retires, and then he's going to actually be a part of their family. So that's her whole perspective on it. So she doesn't really ask him where he's going or anything like that. And Charlie is introduced, and Charlie's a 5-year-old, and the dialogue was a little odd when he was talking. He went back and forth from like toddlerish talk to older child adult, but that is explained in the book that Charlie is super smart. His teachers, his pediatricians, they are unable to explain why like how smart he is to their parents, but he's really far ahead. So he's he's off the charts. He's just super smart. And Sarah asks him, while he's home, Sarah asks him about his latest case, and she heard about it on the news, and so she's asking him questions about it, and he's just like, oh, it looks like it's an apparent unaliving. And she was like, okay. And he's like, there may be more to it, but I don't know. And he pointedly doesn't tell her about the spooks that he saw because he doesn't want to put her in any danger. And then we go back to Reed. When Reed gets back to his house, him and Wendy are talking. They're just talking. They're just kind of hanging out. She's really annoyed about him freaking out over her earrings. He does tell her, yes, I want you to return them. And they have a small argument about her returning the earrings. And he tells her that if she returns it, he'll buy her some new earrings. Reed turns around and he looks out of the backyard. Like, while they're kind of in this little argument thing, he looks out into the backyard and sees that there's stuff like in the snow. It looks like somebody went out there and kind of dug symbols and things in the snow, but he can't really tell what it's saying. He starts to freak out and he's like yelling at Wendy, do you see that? Do you see that? Do you see this right here? What is that? And she's like, I don't see anything. I can't tell what you're looking at. And he does the thing that some parents do where he's like at the back windows and he's like, it's right there. Follow my finger. It's right there. Do you not see it? And she's like, I don't see anything. I have no idea what you're talking about. He explains that it's some geometric shapes that are drawn in the snow. She tells him that she doesn't see anything and she starts to look at him weird again, and he's like, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I'm really tired and I just need to go to sleep. And when Reed goes to sleep, he starts having some weird nightmares about the farm and Sadie. So he starts remembering that they used to play at this big tree, and he's like imagining the bark on the tree and Sadie's there, and then it's like a normal day, and then one of the nightmares starts happening. He starts seeing the bark, like, looks like there's shapes in it, and then he looks at Sadie and Sadie is screaming except there's no sound. He wakes up and he's just like, okay, this is odd. And then we switch back again, except we shift to Charlie. Charlie is, like I said, the detective's son, and right now he's upset. He has a stuffed duck that he sleeps with. You know, he's 5 years old, and he's holding the stuffed duck in his arms while he's in his bed trying to sleep, and he's focusing on the duck. He's like, there's the duck here, except there's noises happening in his room, and he describes these noises as a monkey. There's a monkey in his room, and he can hear the monkey because in his room he has one of those little tents that his dad put up for him in his room that he just plays in. And at night, sometimes in that room, in that tent, there will be what he describes as a monkey, and the monkey will make noises in there, and he just stares at the stuffed animal and he hopes that the monkey won't come out and come and get him. So he's focusing on the duck. In his head, he's like, if I focus on this duck and I don't break eye contact with this duck, the monkey won't come and get me and everything will be okay. And then we go to Prosser. So Prosser goes to the university and he talks to David. David teaches philosophy. He was also the boyfriend of Catherine. And while they're talking, the detective just keeps thinking of how pretentious David is and how pretentiously he's talking. And he gets really annoyed with him. And the David tells him that Catherine had hyperthymesia, which is a rare condition that allows people to recall an unusually large number of life experiences in vivid detail. I looked it up. And so that made her hyper interested in a lot of different subjects. And he described her as she would get hyper focused on one subject, learn everything she can about it, kind of like suck it dry of all of its life and then move on to a different thing. And that was just how she was. He said it made her very interesting. And then when she was done with the subject, he was like, so he's like, that room, because he described the room with the electronics. He was like, oh yeah. He's like, it would be all full of electronics or something until she mastered that, and then it would be filled with something else. He tells Detective Prosser, because Prosser asks him, like, why do you think she did it? And he's expecting to hear about the satellite exploding, and then he's just like, I forget exactly what David says, but he brings up that she found out that there was something that made life more terrifying. So she decided to end it. And from there, we go back to Reed. Reed is still having nightmares. And during one of these nightmares, he wakes up. And when he wakes up, he wakes Wendy up. And she starts to freak out. Like, is everything okay? Are you fine? What's going on? And he tells her that he finally realizes what happened. He remembers what happened. And she's like, what are you talking about? Remember what? And he's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's fine. And she's like, no, you woke me up freaking out telling me you remember something. What did you remember? And he's like, don't worry about it. It's good. It's fine. It doesn't involve you. And he's like, we'll just go back to sleep. And she says that he can't pull that shit with her again, just telling her about nothing. And he tells her she needs to loosen her leash on him, and is surprised when she gets super offended by this. And she's like, you know what? I think I'm going to give you some space. And he's like, I think I'm going to give you some space. And he's like, you know what? That's probably a good idea. And she tells him to call her when he's not a scared little man. Really harping on that whole strength thing. But Reed is like, okay, yeah, whatever. And the next morning he gets ready. He goes to Joseph and he wants to tell Joseph that he remembers what happened, why he ran away from Sadie the last time that he was there. And when he gets to the house, he sees that Joseph is off in the field over there doing something on tractory things. So what he decides to do is he goes to Facebook on his phone and he finds Sadie in their friends list, mutual contacts, whatever. He finds her on Facebook and he FaceTime calls her from Facebook. She picks up and he is really surprised that she does. And he tells her that he remembers what happened when they were a kid, and she's really annoyed with him. She's like, good for you. You just realized what happened. I've been dealing with this for years. Why are you bothering me? He's like, well, I remembered. It's a UFO. And she's like, yeah, I've been living with this for a while. And she ends up hanging up on him, and he's just, his whole brain is wrinkled that he remembered, like he can figure this out. Later on, Wendy does come back to Reed and he wants to tell her what happened. And he kind of does, except he says that he saw a UFO when he was younger and that he was almost abducted by aliens. And that's what he remembered. And that's why he was excited that he remembered it, because he wanted to go tell Joseph, the farmer, who was the father of the girl that he used to hang out with. And she gets weird about this. She tells him that he needs to go see a therapist or something. And he's like, I can't see anybody related to work because that'll be put on my record. And she's like, you can go see somebody privately. And he's like, that's going to be a lot of work. That's money and everything. And she gets annoyed. And they just decide not to talk about it. They just decide to stop talking about it and not deal with it right now. So one of these nights they just go to sleep. they go to sleep. They're just like, we're not going to talk about this. This will be a later thing. And when they're both sleeping there, Reed wakes up from having the same nightmare over and over again. And he wakes up and he sees that the house is full of light. It is full bright white light in the house. And he looks at Wendy and she's still asleep there. He tries to wake her up to see, be like, hey, do you see this? And she won't wake up. And he hears something out in the hallway. So he grabs a pistol from his nightstand and goes to chase it. He goes to see what happens. He hears some noises, and he opens up the door. When he opens up the door and walks through, he is teleported outside of the house. When he's teleported outside, he's just kind of freaking out. He's holding his pistol. He's trying to look off into the distance to see what's happening. And after a while, he hears Wendy yelling at him from the back door. And she's like, "What are you doing out here?" And he was like, "I heard a noise. I saw something." Or he's just trying to kind of explain it away because she won't really believe him. And when they're in there, they're like, "Where's Badge?" Badge is his dog. And they go and they look for Badge. They find Badge in the basement shaking. And when this starts happening, Reed decides that he needs more information. So he goes to the library the next day when he can, and he asks the librarian like how to look up things without telling her what he's looking up because he doesn't want to look crazy. So he has her explain how to look up stuff in their digital thing. He ends up finding books on aliens and spaceships and UFOs and abductions, and he gathers a stack of books and goes towards one of the study rooms, like in this hallway area, and goes to start researching through some of these books. And when he's researching through these books, he can't find any answers that satisfy any of the questions he has. So he ends up calling Sadie again on FaceTime. When he calls her, she apologizes for her first reactions. And she's like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that." And while they're talking about all of the stuff that's going on, she gives him vague hints about what these things are. And the lights go off in the library. When the lights go off, his phone is still working, so he's still on the FaceTime call, and he's explaining what's happening to her because she's like, "What's going on?" And she tells him to go run and hide. And he's like, "No, why would I go run and hide?" And she's like, "Trust me, you don't want to mess with these things. Just go run and hide, and I hope everything's fine." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." So he decides he's going to go see what's going on. So he goes to walk down the hallways, everything he sees. There's somebody at a table. And I had forgotten this earlier. So after he started seeing the mantis while he was out on patrols and everything, he went back to the gas station where Patch was working. And doing the normal type of bantery thing with Patch, there was a new display of something in the gas station. He's like, "Huh, that's interesting." And he goes to get some coffee, and he sees a mantis, another mantis there. And the head is starting to get bigger and bigger because it's a part of some display. And when that's happening, time stops. Everything, like time completely freezes for him. And he's walking around trying to figure out what's going on. He's like, "What is this?" And he goes towards Patch. He's starting trying to ask Patch questions. Nothing's happening. Everything's frozen. And then it all catches back up. After the mantis head starts getting bigger at him, he starts to freak out a little bit. Time catches up, and he's like, "Whoa, what happened?" And when time started working again, a Tesla came into the gas station, and a woman in a white dress and black hair, her hair is described as kind of being like wet on her head, and she comes inside. She has super white skin, and she says that gas is too expensive here. He looks at her, and he kind of starts to freak out a little bit, and he's still freaking out from the time stopping, so he just goes past her and goes out to his cruiser and leaves. Later after he starts freaking out and realizes that he was almost abducted by aliens, he goes back to find the attendant. He uses the police computer to find out his address. He goes to his apartment and almost picks up this little nerdy kid and is physically intimidating him to tell him what happened. The attendant tells him that he came in, everything was normal, and then he froze. He froze, and he was just staring off into space. Nobody could get a hold of him, get him to talk to him coherently. And he was just frozen there. And he said while he was frozen there was an owl display. that was put up, and the owl started getting bigger and bigger and larger and starting going towards Patch, and Patch started to freak out. And then the woman came in, and then when the woman came in, Reed started to act normally, and then he got freaked out and ran out. And then the woman was just like, that's weird, and she went to the roller hot dog thing in the gas station and just picked up a hot dog and ate it and then left. So Reed is just like, no, you froze. And the attendant's like, what are you talking about? No, I didn't. Like, you were the one who was just standing there, and then you freaked out and you ran out. He sees the same woman there at this table, and she has straight hair, very white skin. Her eyes are large and almond shape and black, and she looks odd. And after a while, he describes her as looking at like something wearing a skin suit. So he decides that he's going to call these things wolves, because he thinks of Little Red Riding Hood, of the wolf wearing grandma, like dressing up as grandma to eat Little Red Riding Hood. So he's like, all right, these aliens that I've been calling aliens and spaceships and stuff, I'm not going to call them aliens anymore. I'm going to call them wolves. And she tells him that humans don't know how to think for themselves, and that they're going to show him something special. And then the power comes on. He runs out of the library and he calls Sadie, and she gets mad at him and tells him, like, next time I tell you to run, just go run and hide. And he's like, no. And he asks her who that was, what that was. And she's like, those are them. And then we switch back to Detective Prosser. Detective Prosser gets home, and Sarah's there. She's reading this really large project management book, and he tells her that he is going to take Charlie to the local toy store as kind of an apology for spending so much time on this case, and just to spend time with him. And she's like, he would really like that. And he puts Charlie to sleep, turns on the TV and to find a baseball game, and he's just thinking through the case while he's watching this baseball game. His house is set up with all smart devices. He has like the smart appliances in his house. He has a Wi-Fi extender, I think it's what it's called, and he has that set up so it can handle the bandwidth of all of his smart devices and all the things he has connected to the internet and things. And his neighbor has a motion sensor that goes out and looks out across his pool, because his neighbor has a fear of swimming in the dark, but continues to swim in the dark when it's night outside. So the way he gets around that is he has a light that has a motion sensor on it that will keep a light shining on the pool while he is swimming in the dark. So he's not swimming in the dark because he's scared of that. So while John is watching this baseball game and he's thinking about this case, the appliances start getting, I guess, weird. The light comes on across the pool, and he's like, that's weird. So he turns off the lights and everything. He's getting ready for bed. He sees that the light's coming on, but he doesn't see his neighbor there. And he's like, that's a fast swim. Okay. And then when he goes to turn around to go upstairs, he sees Charlie standing on the stairs, and it scares him. And he's like, all right, I'm going to put you back to sleep. It's time to go to bed. And he puts him back to sleep. And he sees that the stuffed duck is inside the tent when he's putting back to sleep. And he's like, oh, let me grab that for you. And he tucks him in, goes back to sleep. And then we switch back to Reed. And Reed gets to the station. He is being put on a suspension because of what he did with Patch, I guess. And he also, he was put on a suspension because of Patch, because he wasn't answering calls while he was freaking out about all of these things. And so he comes back to the station, and he finds out that the station is just like pretty much almost empty. So he's just like, that's so weird. It's so empty. And then during this time, he finds out from another officer that a huge famous scientist committed an unaliving of herself, and that's where everyone went to go. Reed is annoyed because he was like, I would love to be a lead detective on that type of case. He's having this interaction with this officer, and this officer shows him a picture on his phone, and it's of a naked woman. And Reed's like, okay, that's odd. And this officer tells him that he used AI to generate a naked image of this woman celebrity so he can have those images on his phone. And he's like, AI's crazy, right? And I was like, that's gross. And then he's thinking about the wolves being somewhat AI. And he's like, okay. And then after, I guess, a normal day at work, Wendy is there and she's being super cold to him. I can't really blame her. Like, they're having a weird time in their relationship. Like, she's being super cold to him. She's not really talking to him. And he's like, all right, whatever. When they're both asleep, he wakes up and there's that light in the house again. And he grabs the pistol and he tries to wake up Wendy, and she's not there. Like, he goes to wake her up and that side of the bed is empty. And he's like, oh no, where'd she go? So he goes to look for her, and he goes to open the door, and he's thinking that he's going to be teleported outside again, except he's not. He just goes through the door, and he's trying to look for her. He ends up going outside, and he sees Badge there barking, but there's no sound. And then he sees the same triangle black ship off in the distance, and it has a tractor beam going down, and he sees Wendy is in her pajamas in that tractor beam, still asleep, being very slowly pulled up towards the ship. He realizes, he starts running towards the ship. And then as he's getting closer, he realizes that it's not a triangle like he has been thinking this whole time, that it's actually a pyramid-shaped ship. And he's running towards Wendy. And the closer he's getting to Wendy, the further he seems to be getting away from her. And he's just like, this is really odd. And he's pushing himself as hard as he can. He is running out of breath. He is getting tired. He's straining his muscles, but he's still trying to get to Wendy. And Badge is also there running towards him, or running with him. And when he finally gets to her, he goes to grab her out of the tractor beam, and the tractor beam just goes away and she falls into his arms. And he takes her back to the house and puts her on the couch. And she wakes up and she realizes she's on the couch, and she's like, how did I get here? What are you doing? And Reed tells her that she was almost abducted by aliens. He saved her. And she's like, did you move me downstairs so you could lie to me and tell me this? And he's like, no. He's like, why would I do that? And he's like, you were almost abducted. Me and Badge ran out there to save you. He's like, why would I put you on the couch? And she tells him that he's lying to her and that she can't take it anymore. And she's like, I can't do this. So she grabs her stuff and she leaves. He's upset, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to go chase her or something. I'm going to make her understand, or maybe this is the best thing. I don't know. When she leaves, he gets a knock on the door. When he opens up the door, there are 3 men standing there with very, slick back haircuts, wearing generic suits, and are they wearing sunglasses? No, but they're wearing fedoras. And they tell him that they saw nothing, that he saw nothing, that they know what he think he saw, and he did not see that. And they introduce themselves as Sanders, Vitality, and I can't even read my own handwriting. They tell themselves that they're agents, and they introduce themselves, and they're telling him that he didn't see anything. And he's like, yeah, I did see something. I saw a spaceship over there, and they almost abducted my girlfriend. And they're like, no, you didn't. And if you think you did, and if you want to tell people you did see something, he's like, there's going to be some bad consequences. And he's like, what are you talking about? Well, if you say anything to anybody, he's like, we're going to kill you, Wendy, Badge, and your mother's going to have an accident down in Florida where she will go missing. And they leave. And he's really upset that they dare threaten him or his family or anybody else. So he grabs Badge to come with him. He jumps in his Jeep Wrangler and goes and follows them in their vehicle. And he was like, how dare you? I'm going to find out where you guys are at and all of this stuff. He's getting super angry. He follows them down the road and he's just really annoyed. He's like, why are you guys following the traffic laws? Why are you guys following the speed limit? Why are you guys using signal lights? You guys can see me behind you. And in my head, I think that the Wrangler's like bright yellow or something. It's probably red. I think it would be red. Anyways, he's following down. They're even letting like people like merge in front of them. And he's like, they go down a highway and he's still following them. He's not hiding that he's following them. They end up going into a bridge or not under a bridge, into a tunnel. And when they go into that, he loses them. And he's like, where'd they go? He ends up on the other side and they're gone. He can't find them. He doesn't know where they're at. And he's just like, So he decides that he is not safe in his house and he's worried about Badge. So he puts Badge in a kennel so Badge can be safe. And then he's like, you know what? I'm going to go sleep at the station. There's people who do it when they're having hard times in their lives. I'm just going to go sleep at the station. And then we go switch to Charlie. Charlie is trying to sleep, but he hears the monkeys in the tent again. And he's squeezing his eyes shut and he's pretending to be asleep. And he hears the monkeys opening up the tent and coming towards him. He says that this is the worst part, is when they get near him or when they touch him. He said their skin feels cold and feels like Play-Doh, and they smell like citrus and something spoiled. And he hates being taken by them, but he doesn't fight because fighting makes it worse. And then it switches back to Reed. And Reed is sleeping at the station, and when he wakes up, he texts Wendy. He's just like, I'm sorry. Like, just like, good morning, good afternoon, like, I hope you're okay type of text. And when he's asleep, he gets abducted by the aliens. And he's in this bright light and he can't move. And not being able to move is one of his worst fears type things. He's just so angry about it. He's trying to get himself to move. He can't move, but he can feel like pressure on him. Then he can hear them in his mind. When he hears them in his mind, he sees them there and they look like the typical type of grays, is what you describe them. And so he sees them as grays around him and they're talking to him in his head and he's like begging them to stop, except they're ignoring him. And then he hears another one and it brings in the smell of citrus and like rotting meat. When he's abducted, he's really upset that they're like doing stuff to him. And then he wakes up, but when he wakes up, he's underneath a table or a desk at the station. And he's like trying to tell himself to be a machine, just do like he does everything else and not let his emotions get a hold of him. Because if they get a hold of him, he'll be angry. And angry is the only personality trait he has in this whole book. There's this other officer around there named Jean, and Jean works in IT. She worked with the detective, I think earlier in the book, to help break into the laptop so he could have access to all the files that Catherine had. And he's been looking through her files, can't understand a thing, but he had her break into it for him. And so she works in IT. When Reed's waking up, she's around there and she's like, she tells him that there's something wrong with the computers. And he's like, that's weird. And while he's trying to wake up, and she's like, yeah, there was something weird and electrical happened. And then she starts telling him that it's his fault, that he did something to her computers. And he's like, what are you talking about? She gets up in his face and starts yelling at him. They start yelling at each other and the fight gets broken up. Like it's a weird fight type. It's not even a fight. They end up yelling. Somebody comes out and the captain comes out and tells him like, you better knock it off type thing. He apologizes. And the fight's broken up. And we get to see this fight from John's perspective as well. So John is in the captain's office and he's trying to get some information from the captain again about who's calling him. He wants her to tell him that the CIA is contacting her about this case. And right before he can fully question her, they hear yelling. They go out into the bullpen area and they see Reed yelling at Janine, and they're really worried that Reed is just going to go out and just fully deck Janine and gonna just attack her. And he's like standing there. There's people like holding his arms and he's standing there. He's getting more and more angry, and they're like, what's going on? He tells them that she's blaming him for computers that he has nothing to do with. And she says, he did something to my computers. He was the only one here. He went to attack me. Not even exaggerating, just full out lying about what he did. And then he's like visibly calms himself and he's like, I didn't do anything. I'm sorry that I got upset. That's my bad. And she's really smug about it. Like, it's talking like there's this whole history with them that we don't know. But later on, Reed is in his civilian clothes and he decides that he's going to go to this one shop that he doesn't want to be caught at because it's a weird shop. He goes in there and it's like a new agey, witchy type shop. And he asks them very vague questions on how to protect himself or get rid of something that's weird and negative. The girl behind the counter keeps trying to ask him questions and he's just like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. So she thinks that, you know what? It's probably evil spirits or maybe a demon. So she sells him a book on exorcism. She sells him some herbs and things and some a protection amulet. And he also asks about ways to fall asleep. So she gives him some herbs as well that she's like, make a tea of it and drink it this much before you want to go to sleep and it'll help you sleep. And he feels stupid buying all of this stuff. And he was like, you know what? Maybe it'll work. Maybe they are demons. While he's doing that, Prosser is at a different store down, I guess, the main road. He picked up Charlie from school and he took Charlie to the toy store like he said he was going to. And him and Charlie picked up a book or picked up a toy. And when he pays for it, he looks out the window and he sees Reed. And he's like, that's weird. That guy's been acting really weird lately. I wonder if everything's okay. I hope he's not going to blow a gasket like his dad. When he sees Reed get in his vehicle and sees Reed go away, he also sees those 3 men that he saw from the campus, except now they're wearing suits and not khaki pants. And he sees them following Reed. So he tells Charlie that they're going to play a game, that they're going to play a detective-like game to get some more information. And they start following Reed and these men, and he takes his phone out and takes some pictures of their license plates, of the people following them, and then before he starts to get in his vehicle to actually follow them, he remembers that he has Charlie there, so he's like, all right, I need to calm down. And then him and Charlie go home. He tells Sarah that there are feds looking into the case that he's working on. He was like, oh, yeah, those feds I told you about. She's like, what feds? And he's like, oh, yeah, my bad. So there's feds working on this case, too. And she's like, oh. And he's like, and I saw them following Reed. And she's like, you have to tell him. You have to tell Reed he's being followed by feds. And he's like, well, how am I going to tell him? They probably bugged his house. They probably bugged his phone. They probably bugged his vehicle. How am I going to tell him this? Okay, she comes up with the idea to have him write down a note of what's been going on. And then he comes up with the idea that they're going to need burner phones. He's like, he can't, it's like, my phone's probably bugged. His phone's probably bugged. His whole house is probably bugged. So I'm going to need a burner phone and I'm going to write him a letter. And then she tells him that Wendy can go deliver it to Reed. That way they're not fully meeting, and that should be fine. And so that's the plan. And they do. Sarah goes to Wendy and she gives him this box that she's like, I need you to go give this to Reed. And so she shows up to the house with Reed and she's like, here. And she tells him that Sarah came and like somebody visited her at her job and asked him to give him this, and she's like, there you go. And she leaves and she asks before she leaves, she asks where Badge is, because she's like, where's Badge? And he's like, I put him in a kennel. And she's like, oh, something must be wrong. He put the dog in a kennel. But she leaves. Reed reads the letter that Prosser told him, and they finds out that he's been tracking. He's like, I have a plan. He's like, I have a plan. And so since they're following Reed, he has Reed go to the mall and park in this parking garage. And while he's there just shopping, Prosser is also in that parking garage, and they're using the burner phones to let each other know what's going on. And he goes down, he finds the vehicle that is tailing Reed, and he puts a tracking device on the vehicle, and then he also gets the VIN number. And he's like, I'm going to look up this vehicle later. Later on, he tells Reed that the vehicle, was a CIA vehicle, and that they are tailing him. He asks him why they would be tailing him, and Reed is like, I don't know. I don't know why they'd be following me. And Prosser automatically knows that he's lying. And so Reed gets back on shift. He is really angry that Prosser keeps telling him that they need more information, because after Reed found out that the CIA is following him, his big idea is to use the tracking device that Prosser put on the vehicle to go and physically assault the CIA agents to make them tell them why they're tailing him or get more information from them. He just wants to beat them up. Prosser keeps telling him, we need more information before any of this can happen. And Reed's just like, why? Prosser tells him, this, if you want to be a detective, which I heard you wanted to be a detective, right? You want to be a detective? And Reed's like, yeah. You're going to have to do something we called gathering evidence. So he's like, we need more information. Reed is stewing, and he gets a call while he's on shift that there's cows from the old farmhouse that he used to live across the street from. The cows have gotten out and they're just blocking the road. So he goes over there, which makes me ask, like, how big is this town? They have a huge university and then a small community college in the same town, big enough that it's like giving big city vibes, but also being told that it's like a small town vibe. I don't know how big this town is. I may look it up. I may not. But small enough that he has to go to the local farm because the cows are in the road again. So he goes to the local farm. He gathers up the cows a little bit. He's trying to find Joseph. It's Joseph's farm. Can't find Joseph. So he starts like freaking out a little bit. And he calls Sadie to let her know that her father is missing. And she tells him that she'll be there in a few days. She needs to wrap up some stuff, and then she'll get there as soon as he can. And then while he's trying to find Joseph, he sees there's a weird crop circle in the field. Later on, after his shift, he goes to the detective's house, and the detective tells him, like, this is where they've been, this is where they are, shows them pictures. They all realize they're the same people. The detective keeps telling them they need more information, and Reed's just like, let's just go find them and beat them up, and they'll tell us what it is. And so the detective tells them they need to go through Catherine's things, because this is all tied to Catherine, and they need to find out how this is tied to Catherine. And so they start going through her laptop, start going through all of her information, and Reed gets so bored. He's like, I can't understand any of this, and you can't understand any of this. This is a waste of time. We need to go find those agents. And Prosser keeps telling me, we need more information. You need to be useful with something. So Reed decides that he's going to look up the satellite that she built. And so he finds a video, and then he finds a few more videos of the satellite blowing up. And he realizes there's something in it. And he goes to Reddit, and he finds a slowed down video of something being shot at the satellite right before it explodes. And he's super excited. He's like, this is them. Prosser, this is them. The aliens did this. Prosser's telling him, like, we need a more credible source. You can't just say it was real because you saw it on Reddit. And he finds like a news source, slows down the video, and sees that the same thing's there. And he's like, is that official enough for you? And John's like, I guess that's okay. He's like, but we also need some more evidence. And then again, Reed gets mad. And so they finally find the name of somebody that Catherine was working with, and they're like, we need to go talk to this person. Reed goes back home to go to sleep, and he decides he can't go to sleep because he's worried that the aliens are going to abduct him. So he grabs his pistol and sits on his couch, and he waits for them. And he's like, I'm not going to fall asleep. I'm not going to fall asleep. I'm going to wait for them. And he ends up falling asleep, and they end up abducting him. And he wakes up in his bed with the weapon, with his pistol underneath, like, or on the pillow, like around there. And he has no memory of them abducting him. And he is surprised when he has an alarm or something because he's going to go pick up Sadie from the airport. They talked about it the night before, but he doesn't remember it. He goes to pick up Sadie from the airport, and he's just like, oh, it's really exciting to see you. She looks at him and she's like, oh, you look like shit. And he's like, yeah. On their way to the farmhouse, Reed is just like, we're going to find your father. And she just pretty much says, he's gone. He's gone. I know he's gone, but I have to do my due diligence and I have to look for him, but I know he's gone. And Reed's like, how do you know? And she's like, because he wouldn't do this to me. And so she's like, I'm going to do this and it's going to be fine. And I'm going to look for him for a few days and then I'm going to go home. And Reed tells her about him working with Prosser and finding out more information, and he's trying to ask her some more information without asking her some more information, and he tells her that he's pretty strong enough that he could probably take them down. And she tells him, don't fight it. She's like, the more you fight it, the worse it is for you. And she's like, they've been messing with me my whole life. And she's like, you just need to move on where you can. And he's like, no, I'm strong. I can do this. And she gets mad at him. She's like, you know what strength is? Strength is going through all of this and still picking yourself up and to still make a life for yourself. She's like, that's strength. Then she asks him if he's okay. And everybody's been asking Reed throughout this whole experiences if he's okay, if he needs to talk, if something's going on with him. And he gets mad and annoyed with every single one of them that ask him this, especially his girlfriend, Wendy. And so he just refuses to talk about this. But Sadie asks him, are you okay? And he's just like, somebody cares for me? Oh, I think my heart grew 3 sizes that day. I'm like, dude, people have been asking you this whole book. But whatever. Anyways, he drops her off at the farm, and then they cut to where John and Reed are going to meet with this person who was working with Catherine on this satellite. And he owns this advanced dynamics engineering firm thing. And he tells them that, they work together on it, and he's answering some questions. They tell him that they're with the police and they need some more information about Catherine. And then he starts feeling a little weird with them, and he's like, well, we need to find out more about her. We're not sure what happened. They find out that Catherine has been working with the DOD and getting contracts to get grant money to build this satellite. And this just wrinkles their whole brain. Like, every scientist out there has not taken a military contract for things they invented. They're really surprised by this, and they built the satellite, and she was so excited. And he said that she created the satellite, that she was so smart that she was surpassing him in everything, and she completely designed it. She had all the blueprints and everything. All he did was Lego it together, pretty much. Then they ask him if people start asking questions about her or anything like that, and he laughs, and he's pretty much like, I work in engineering with a lot of government contracts and things that I can't talk to you about. He's like, there's always 3-letter men coming around here asking about things. He's like, but I have an NDA. So he's telling him that they built this, and he's like, was it really this expensive? And he tells him that he was surprised that she jumped because of the satellite, because she had insurance on this satellite that would cover the cost of another one, and he already had the blueprints and everything. Building another one would have taken substantially less time than building the first one. So when he found out that it exploded, he expected a call from her that he would need to build another one, except he got a call that she had jumped. So he was super surprised by that, and he was like, I don't know why that was. And they're trying to get more information out of him, but he's like, I don't really know. She did all of the mathy, sciencey stuff. And then he's like, she brought up WIMP. And they ask what WIMP is. And he's like, weakly interacting massive particles. He's like, that's as much as I can tell you. When they're headed back, they realize that they have a tail on them probably from the same people that have been following Reed for this whole time. Reed keeps telling them, pull over, let me at him, give me 5 minutes with them. And Prosper's like, why would you do that? That's so stupid. We need more information. Reed asks him if he believes him about the aliens, and John tells him that Sarah believes him about the aliens, but he needs some more information. He's not really sure, but he can say that there's something happening and that he's super skeptical anyways. And Reed's annoyed and angry that he doesn't fully believe him. When John gets home, Sarah tells him that he's being intellectually lazy by not believing Reed, and that he should just believe Reed. Even though we know the things are happening. I'm like, Reed's not doing a really good job of explaining any of this or getting more information. He's just like, I want to beat things up. And Reed gets home. When he's home, Wendy calls him and she tells him that she wants to break up, that she needs somebody strong for her. And he is freaking out about things and he's being weak and pathetic. And so she wants to break up. And he's like, fine, whatever. Reed goes to John's. They've been hanging out at John's a lot. He's been enjoying the family dynamic that John has. He goes there. He tells them that Wendy broke up with him. And they're like, oh, so sorry. That's so bad. And they finally open up the black box that she was working on. And they see that there is some yellow greenish fluid in there and has a giant H on it. So apparently this town has a science-y company thing that employs like half the town, and it has this huge corporation headquarters there, and it's this giant glass building, and it's an H for Hephaestus, which does a lot of science-y things. And John finally contacts Catherine's parents to ask if there was anybody that Catherine would have talked to about this or anything. He talked to them previously when he was first doing the investigation, and they told him that pretty much what David told him about her being super smart and super out of the league of everybody and super weird, and they were sad but not surprised that she unalived herself. They tell him that it was probably her brother that she would talk to. And they're like, yeah, she would always call him Wimp. His name is Sean. They give him his number. Later on, when John and Sarah are talking together, she asks him to believe everything Reed is saying and aliens and everything. And if that was true, we're doing a thought exercise. If this was true, what would this satellite be? John tells her that this satellite's for imaging dark matter, and then she laughs at him. She's like, you are so naive. That's not what this would be. And she's like, I think it would be a weapon. I think that it would be a weapon. And he's like, no, but it's not. He tells her that the name is Elisha. So she's like, I Googled it, and it is a story about a prophet from the Old Testament that called on God because he could see an invisible army. And so she's like, obviously that's what this satellite is, because Catherine was doing something. And I looked it up. It's not the story of Elisha. It's a story about Elijah, but it's different and more complex. You can Google it. And then we go back to Reed. Him and Sadie are there, like, talking about the aliens and everything. And she's just like, yeah, but they, can't trust them. You need to avoid them at all costs. And he's just like, I want to punch the tree. And he's like, I'd rather do drastic, physical, angry things than accept just not doing anything. And John and Reed go to the Hephaestus headquarters. They end up talking with the CEO of the company who comes to meet with them. They ask him questions about the satellite, about Catherine, and he keeps telling them there's an NDA and he can't break it. And then Reed tries to intimidate him, like physically stand over him and intimidate him, but it doesn't work. And then after that, they go to see Catherine's brother in Boston. When they're going to see Catherine's brother in Boston, they find out that Catherine saw aliens as well, and that he saw aliens, and that the aliens would abduct both of them. And so what she was doing was she was building a network of satellites, and these satellites would create a invisible shield over the earth that would prevent the aliens from coming down and abducting people, and that these aliens were a part of dark matter, more like they were in a different type of dimension, and they used dark matter as a way of crossing back and forth. And that's what she was working on. And they asked him why she would jump. If they had insurance money to build another satellite, why would she jump? And he said that is probably because she found out something that was worse than living. They head back from Boston and they stop at a diner, and when they're at this diner, 2 CIA agents walk in, 2 of them that they've seen before, and they walk in with a third person who is wearing a skin suit. So it's a gray wearing a skin suit, and they sit across from them. The CIA agents and Prosser are doing this little dance like they don't really know what's going on, like veiled threats type things. Reed just jumps up and stabs the gray wearing a skin suit in the middle finger, because they only have 4 digits and we have 5. So they put their fingers in these 2, and then so the middle finger's just like dangling there. There's just a piece of skin dangling there. So he stabs him in the finger. They all jump up. There's all of this happening. They finally make it clear to Prosser that if he continues on this investigation or interfering with them, that they will hurt him and his family. And he's like, whoa. They tell him, like, it's this time o'clock. Isn't your son at a swimming lesson right now? It'd be a shame if something happened to him. So they freak out. They jump in their vehicle and leave after Reed stabbed this guy. He tries to call Sarah, and it's not working. He's not getting through to her. He ends up getting a call from the chief. The chief tells him that there was an issue with Charlie at the swimming thing. They're going to the ER, and that Charlie drowned. So John pulls over. He starts vomiting. He starts freaking out. They're just trying to get back. And then we get a little snippet from Charlie's perspective. Charlie's at the swimming lessons. He's in his usual swimming lessons. And he sees the woman that is the gray in a skin suit, that the same woman that Reed saw, standing off in the corner of the swimming lessons, and he's just kind of watching her watch everybody, and he's getting a little weird. Then when they get back, they find out it was a different Charlie. There was a different Charlie in the same class of the same swimming school, and that Charlie drowned, not his Charlie. So he gets mad at Sarah for letting him think that his son drowned when it was a different kid that drowned. And she's just freaked out that Charlie's been traumatized, and then she apologizes to him for the misunderstanding, but Charlie's fine. And then he's just like, all right, I'm not doing anything else. This was too close of a call. I'm not messing with this anymore. And he tells her that he's going to give Reed all of the stuff that he has, and he's not dealing with this anymore. And then we switch back to Reed. Reed decides to go pick up Badge. And when he goes to the kennel to pick up Badge, he is like, all right, I'm here to pick up Badge. And they're like, you were already here. And he's like, no, I wasn't. And they're like, yeah, you picked him up earlier. And he's like, no, I didn't. Go get my dog. So they go back there, and they're like, your dog's not here because you picked him up earlier. And so he throws a fit and starts yelling and screaming at them and trying to get in the back. And then the person behind the counter is the owner of the kennel, and tells him, I will call your boss. I will call the captain. It's not a good look for you. Just, you need to leave right now. And so he walks out. He drives around, breaks into the back of the kennel to where there's this just giant like gymnasium type thing. And he breaks into there, and he's calling for Badge. All of these dogs are running around. They're all playing. They're all like running at him. And he realizes that Badge isn't there. And the owner's like, that's it. I'm going to call the cops if you don't leave right now. He gets really mad. He texts John about the last coordinates the coordinates of the house that it appears the CIA agent that's been telling him lives at. He goes there, And he starts banging on the door and he starts demanding his dog back. He's like, I know you have my dog. Open up and give me my dog. An elderly couple opens up the door and they're like, can we help you? And he was like, where is this guy? Because he has the name of the CIA agent that introduced himself to him before. And then that guy's like, that's my name. The older man is like, that's my name. He's like, we just came back from a cruise. What are you talking about? And then he opens it more and the captain's like coming out and she's like, what are you doing here? Reed, what is going on? And he's like, whoa, Captain, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, I was checking on the house. My aunt and my uncle here have been gone on a cruise for a few weeks and they just got back and I'm just hanging out with them. What are you doing here? And he's like, I gotta go. When he gets home, he's abducted again. And then this time when he's abducted, he not only sees the gray aliens anymore, he also sees this giant mantis-like alien. And that's the one that's in charge of all of the grays and has been demanding all of these experiments and stuff. So he sees that one and just loses hope. When he wakes up, he sees John. John stops by, gives him all of the evidence, gives him everything that he has, and tells him that he can't do this anymore because it's putting his son and his wife in danger, and he's not doing it anymore. While he's on shift, the next time he's on shift, he's trying to go through Catherine's stuff, trying to read through some of her research, except he doesn't understand anything that's going on in it. And he sees the Tesla driving by, and it's the same Tesla at the gas station that he saw. So he follows the Tesla, is ignoring calls from the dispatch and everything, doesn't tell them what's going on, just turns off his radio and follows the Tesla. The Tesla parks at a local campsite. He parks behind it and he sees the woman walking off into the woods. So he follows her and she's trying to get him to go into this cave. He's like, no. And he tries to pull out his gun, but he doesn't really. And there's the giant mantis alien that comes out of the cave and it's like, ah, and he freaks out, turns around, runs back and runs away. When he runs away, he thinks about all the times that Sadie keeps telling him, don't mess with them, just ignore them, just run away. And he's like, oh man, I should have listened. Then we cut to later on. So Reed hasn't been at work. And he calls Prosser to come to him. And he's like, I figured out something. I need you to come here. And Prosser keeps telling, gets there and he tells him, I told you I'm out. I'm not messing with this anymore. And Reed is like, I figured it out. He tells him that the laptop that she was using has software on it because she works at a university that logs in what programs are opened and everything. So after the satellite was exploded, she went on and she logged into this program called Elijah, that she was in this program for 4 minutes and then she jumped. Elijah is an AI program that she created using a quantum computer from the DoD, and it has a server connected to this DoD quantum computer and use that quantum computer to create this AI. So her plan was to use this AI in conjunction with the satellite network to protect Earth from these aliens. When it was exploded, she went into the AI and she asked it some questions and then she jumped afterwards. So they start asking the AI questions without asking the answer. And after a while, John's like, what if the answer is the reason why she jumped? They realized that, the question was, what do the aliens tell the CIA to make them do their bidding? That was the last question she asked the AI because they're talking back and forth with the AI. And then John tells him, I don't want to know. It made her jump. I don't want to know. I have a family to live for. And Reed tells him, I don't. So thank you for helping out and everything. And I will ask the question by myself. But now we know that she did jump because she found out the answer to this question. John leaves and Reed asks the AI this question. It gives him the answer. Doesn't tell us the answer, but it gives him the answer. And then he sets his house on fire. And the book ends with Charlie. Charlie's at a playground. He's just so happy with his parents. And he's feeling happy with his parents there, that he's seeing his dad more often and just overall happy, and then is thinking about the aliens because he's on the swing. So as he's going up the swing, he's thinking of the aliens, and they've been coming down, but he's like, they're just always there. They're just always watching. That's the book. So this one was a weird one. Like I said, this is the beginning of the Bridgewater series. I don't know how many books. I may look it up. I may not. But this one just came out, and this one is just... It bugs me so much that I've been noticing this especially with the arcs I've been getting, because I got another arc like this. Was last year, and it's people starting a new series, but this was just a really long introduction. Nothing was explained in this book, and that bugs me so much. And I don't mind things not being explained to me like fully. Like, I'm okay with that if I can connect to the characters, if the characters are really well written. Most of the characters in this book had like one personality trait, and that was it. Reed bugged me so much. And John also bugged me as a detective. I was just like, you are not doing detective like things. Like, I feel like you think you are, but I don't think that you are doing detective like things. I worked in law enforcement for a while, and I was just like, this bugs me. This is itchy. It's making my scalp itch, and I don't like it. But this whole book was a very big introduction into this whole series that's going to be happening. I feel like I should have started with the second book, and maybe that would have been more interesting, and this could have just been a weird prequel that I may or may not have ever read. We were introduced to aliens and dark matter in a sense that the aliens are dark matter, but nothing was explained. Like, even the question at the end, and like, whether I agree with it or not, it could have been something really good, but it wasn't, and I didn't like it. And I don't know. I gave this a 2.75 out of 5. It had some interesting ideas. It did. It took me a while to read just because of how the characters were so uninteresting. And Wendy got really annoyed with Sadie at one point. She was like, I am not going to leave, or you can just leave here with your girlfriend. And he's like, what are you talking? I'm like, Wendy, what are you talking about? What do you mean his girlfriend? He just told you this person existed. And you're like, oh no, that's your girlfriend now. Like, or your ex-girlfriend. I'm going to let you run around with your girlfriend. I'm just like, girl, it's just oof. I feel like you don't know real people. Like, the way the characters are written in here were not real people. And I was just like, do you not know real people? Do you not know how real people talk? Is this what it is? Like, I don't know. Wasn't the most terrible book I've read. Like, so that's saying something. Hopefully the second book will be better. I'm going to put this with the whole stack in the We Are Valhalla stack, where I'm hoping the second book is better, and maybe I'll read it at some point in time. I don't know. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. You guys are amazing and awesome, and I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for hanging out with me during this long review. I'm hopefully going to cut out a lot of this. Like, I sat here a lot. I have so many notes. But it's free on Kindle Unlimited if you want to read it. If there's a second book out, I definitely would advise starting with the second book and not this one. Hopefully it's a lot better. It's focusing on one story, and then you'll be golden. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. You guys are amazing and awesome. I appreciate every single one of you. If you do want to read this, I'll put a link to the book from I don't know if it's in your local bookstore. If it's not in your local bookstore, I'll put the Amazon link down below. I'll also put where you can buy it. If it's physically, you can buy it through thrift books, as well as your local library if you are in the United States. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. My socials will also be down below, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.